100%, of course. Friendo. Okay, let's start. Let's start with the most serious show on the internet, right? So let's do this. So welcome to the 113th Airhacks question and answer show with a few questions, but this was my fault, actually. I forgot about that, and I think I announced the show 4 days ago. This was the problem, which is a bit problematic, but I hope all. I almost promise you to announce the 114th Airhacks TV tomorrow. So this is the deal. Okay, now start with the questions from Mr. Krizu. Krizu. What are you using for modularization of your monolithic Java backends? And for Java backends, I'm actually using the number 2 here. There is an interesting article from a company I indirectly know. This is actually an interesting story. And I already told the story here at the Airhacks TV. And it is actually unbelievable, because what happened was I delivered a workshop, it has to be 10 years ago, about architectures for an insurance company. And some people left from the insurance company and created another company called Tech 11. And you can listen on my podcast about that. And if you search for Airhacks FM and then Tech 11, you will find, references to it. And there, I think, were already 2. Exactly. There was the Matthias Reining. He invited me to an insurance company, and then he created an own company. And they watched or listened to Airhacks TV, and they created an architecture which was described here by a nice developer. And what they described, this is the nice developer. This is, by the way, me. Okay, I wanted to tell you. Now you see how I look like, right? But this is an live streaming, so you exactly know. But maybe this is how I look in total, right? And this is a nice developer from the company, and he described actually boundary control entity. And the description, I try to avoid DTOs, but the description of the boundary control entity is actually how I structure my monolithic backends, and they are doing this as well. And and I thought in Vue projects to use Jigsaw. This is actually a Jigsaw. It's I think an old name for the Java module system, which was around, I think there was a OSGI, and then Java came out with a Jigsaw, and now it's just called the JPMS, Java Platform Module System, JPMS. And this JPMS, you can use it for modularization. And I thought about using JPMS for modularizing my command line interface applications, actually. I think I will even do it. But for now, I just use this, the boundary control entity. And how it works is relatively simple. So imagine you have a root folder, and this root folder comes with the name of the application. And on the level of the root folder, you introduce modules Java packages with business names, and the business names are related to the domain. So if you would like to build t-shirts selling, service, then I would expect to have packages with the names, at least t-shirts or selling or contacts or orders. And every such a package, I call it sometimes business component, sometimes modules, different names, is structured the same way, boundary control entity. And some packages, can have just boundaries, means there is only, okay. And what boundary means is like the perimeter, or this is the API layer. So everything has to go through boundary from outside, which means no boundary, no API. So the control is like, in a complex modules, they need some additional business logic, right? And the additional business logic happens in control, or business logic, process logic, or, boring Java methods. And the entity package are just data, and the data can be persistent like JPA, can be persistent like map to DynamoDB or S3, or flat files, and or can be transient like with JSON-P or JSON-B. Okay, so this is basically it. And and the dependency the dependency direction is boundary can call control, and control can call entity, but entity should not call control and boundary. And the packages or the business components have to be somehow independent from each other. So one business component should not call the other business component. So this basically what I'm doing, and this is working surprisingly well, and I get good feedback from various projects which are following this, and because it's simple, this is what I'm doing. Okay, now take a look at the chat. So there are no questions. So Mr. I think your first name is Kuma, I guess. Which Java framework is best for serverless solution for AWS Lambda? For AWS Lambda, Alex S says plain Java with power tools. What I'm doing is either Quarkus with for Lambdas which ship with HTTP API. So I use Quarkus, plain Quarkus. And for true serverless Lambdas, just Java without power tools. So I use power tools from time to time, but usually just plain Java SE without anything. So either I use Quarkus to have, I would say, Docker-like experience, or for the true Lambdas, which are asynchronous, I use nothing. So, and this works well. Great. And these true Lambdas are, for instance, mapped to EventBridge events, let's say, or DynamoDB stream events or S3 events, but usually EventBridge. Great question, Kumar. Alex, thank you for the answer. And Mr. Kaspar, wait, you are missing out on many consulting projects. Each module can become a microservice. It could become, but it does not, right? So I think only in one project we did it like 20 years ago, but this was a huge project. Well, like, I don't know, the entire building of developers was and then we try, to extract one such module. Okay. Hello, my friendo. Yeah, hello. Can you code some Java sockets on this stream? Maybe I could. I mean, I can tell you java.net.socket, new socket, and then I think you will have to accept, and then you get input stream and output stream. You have to think about to do it in right order, otherwise it will block. And then the fun begins, because you will have, in a while loop to get a byte arrays, and just wait and do something with it. But I actually plan to do this in my shorts, and yeah, I will struggle a bit, what I do with the shorts, I try it for sockets, for instance. I don't do sockets every day, right? So in this particular case, I will do it once and then do it again, and this will record the shorts usually. And now you will see, if you like, to see hacking with something, we could do it, but sockets are boring. Of packet sending. Yeah, what will happen, Feritz, if I will do it right, if I will do it right now, I will probably, because it always happens with sockets to me, open the input and output stream in the right, in the wrong order, and then it will block, nothing will happen. There will spite, 2 minutes, and I will recognize this right or the wrong order, and it will just, swap it. Exactly. So, but if you like, I will prioritize my shorts, and one of the next, I will try to publish a socket this week, short about sockets this week. So what about that? Okay, cool. So I already pointed here to the article about boundary control entity. So it's a good read. So if you like, take a look at this. Okay, now, friend of the show, this is Amar Chair. This is the Mr. Dempiler. Ask me, we have a Jakarta applications and we want to integrate it with a business process tool. What do you think about Cogito in comparison with Kamunda? And I actually opened the Cogito. So what Cogito is actually a product from Red Hat, which is well integrated with Quarkus. So what you get with Cogito is the good integration with Quarkus. So that's the entire deal. So if you go here, you see there are 450 stars, and you have a nice integration with Quarkus, which means it runs in the GraalVM mode. So you can have a native image which starts fast and consumes almost no memory, right? So if you compare it with Kamunda, Kamunda GitHub. I actually forgot to open that. It is far more known. Is it the right one? Yeah, Berlin looks good. And we have here, Helm is not that interesting, but there should be Kamunda or something. Connectors, linting. Where is the true Kamunda? Kamunda modular, and there will be somewhere. There are lots of Kamundas, yeah. JS, Node.js. Where is the main repository? The problem is the resolution here. Wait a sec. Kamunda. Everything is Kamunda, of course. Sort by stars. This is good. So this is the Kamunda platform. As you can see, 3.4 thousand stars and 1.4 thousand forks. What's interesting also, if you take a look at contributors, yeah, the contribution are going a little bit down. Actually, yeah, they are going down. And if you take a look here, there's the Tasso is still active, and yeah, here's Torben is also active. But Kamunda is really well known. Quarkus, the Cogito. So let's compare it with Cogito. Where is the? This is Cogito runtimes. If we compare the contribution here, contributors, it's always a good exercise. Okay. Then we see that is now still active, but it was never as active as Kamunda. So I would say if you focus on business process, I would say Kamunda is unbeatable because it is well known and very popular. Cogito is well integrated with Quarkus. So the question is, what is your focus? Is your focus on Kamunda or your focus on Quarkus? Having said that, if you run Kamunda in the cloud, you have, to scale it. This is based on persistence, so you will need a database and scale it somehow. And so the question is, what do you like to achieve? Yeah, if you have to interact with business people, I would probably go with Kamunda. But if you would like to implement your business rules by yourself, I would probably use Cogito because it is more closely integrated with Quarkus. Now let's see what happens here. Okay, good explanation of packet sending. Yeah, Fertis, I will do it with the packet sending, but the packet sending is just output stream write. This is the good explanation. And then if you flush the packets, they are just sent over the sockets, right? So this is what I can do, but this is boring, right? But still, what I wanted to do in the short to show how easy it is actually to open a socket with Java. This was my intention. So Alex says, Lambda functions in Java get so ridiculously fast. This is ridiculously fast. Very true. So it is really fast. So Alex said that Kamunda has a lot of bugs. Yes, but it's still, I would say almost market leader. So lots of projects are using Kamunda. And yeah, and Cogito will also have bugs, right? So and I should ask a question: why you need a BPMN tool at all? So what do you like to achieve? Because usually in some project you can build a simple state machine or some commands and you are done, right? So if you are already need a BPMN, it implies you need a kind of a workflow. You would like to switch roles or something like this, and then you cannot implement it easily by yourself. So statistics, Alex says, whether statistic about performance, I think. I already showed you this. I think there's even a short. There is an paper about Java and energy efficiency, and Java is number 5. So Java is way faster than most programming languages. So as I remember, it's C, C++, Ada, Rust, and then Java. This was the performance. Java is faster than Go, Java is faster than Python and JavaScript and so forth. So if you take a look at my shorts or search for Java energy efficiency, you will find a paper about Java energy efficiency, memory consumption, and performance. This was the answer to Kumar. So Zone also says, okay, with Java sockets, you will get your sockets. I actually wanted to show you the sockets for a long time, but I thought, no one is interested in sockets anymore. So I will start with client socket, then create a server socket, and then maybe both, right? So I promise you, you will get sockets in my shorts from me, right? So I will try record tomorrow at least one socket short. So, okay, where we were. So we were here with Kamunda and Cogito. So for the storage, we try to use very good. So I will also have to answer you, right? So so as you as a pro, I gave you here this one. Where is it? So I cannot. Okay, thank you. So we have for the storage we are using the Minio, and what Minio is as S3 compatible storage is usually used on Kubernetes on premise as an object storage solution. Have your recommendation of the integration? So usually I create a kind of DAO, data access object, but this is very simple. This is like 20 lines of code and it looks like hash map. You don't need anything else. So usually S3 or Minio, you can just save or store byte arrays, right? So and what usually happens, this byte array needs to be transformed to a JSON object, let's say, right? And so there are two layers. So one layer just deals with byte array, and the other layer usually serializes and deserializes your JSON objects to byte array. So I would say for Minio, it is worth to use on DAO. I wouldn't call it DAO, call it just, whatever it does, and done, right? And you usually you can have an interface with implementation. When you're only dealing with Minio, just start with a simple Java class, no interface. You can always introduce interface later. Okay, now what else here? Perfect. Exactly. Alex says complex processes cannot be described easily. They could even be described easily. The problem with complex business processes is if they're running for longer time. That's the big problem of. So if you have transaction which runs for days, and after days there can be a rollback. So this is like long running business process. This is really hard to implement. I mean, hard. You will need to have a scheduler which checks, is there something to do? Is this transaction just to be rolled back? The next challenge in business processes, what happens if you deploy a new version of the process and the old version is still running? So you need somehow version management of the processes. And if you need something like this, you have to pick a business process engine. You cannot implement everything by yourself. If you're in the cloud, you can also take a look at step functions. So this is not on AWS, and I think it's called Logic Apps on Azure. So it is similar to business process engines, but it's serverless, means you don't have to provision anything. You just use it, right, and pay per execution. If there's large number of executions, it can be expensive, as most serverless solutions, right? Very good. What I appreciate about the chat, right? So this is a small Java or nice Java community. So you're answering, your questions by yourself. So in one point of time, I will be obsolete. I will just, turn on the show and then go, drink a water, come back and see what happens here. So thank you. Now, really cool. So there's the time traveling part from 2015 questions. And I'm missing my Brazilian friend who always, watches the show. And I was really interested whether he already caught up. So now, JPA 2.1. Drop and create database, but not update it. How do you usually handle database schema updates and rollbacks? Very good question. And actually, in JPA projects, in smaller one, I'm still using, the Hibernate or Eclipse Link features for schema evolution. If the project becomes serious, I tend to use FlyawayDB. And stay tuned, because there was a nice episode with FlyawayDB creator, actually. So if you're interested in FlyawayDB, please check periodically airhacks FM. In one point of time, in a few weeks, there will be an episode. Okay? And then next question is multi-tenancy. And what happens right now? So in in 2015, I had chats with my clients how to do multi-tenancy, and what I try to do right now, I try to explain that we should not do the multi-tenancy, and instead of doing a multi-tenant system, we should ship multiple systems for each client which are independent from each other. For instance, what I already did multiple times, what we are doing, if we are in the cloud, we are creating one account per client and we're shipping the entire system in the client fully automatically, so you get the full isolation. The problem with multi-tenancy is not only the problem that you have to be really careful what you are doing with the queries and so forth. The problem is if someone hacks your system, everything is hacked. That's the problem, right? So I try to avoid multi-tenancy. If you have to use multi-tenancy, the multi-tenancy is somehow well supported by Java E plus 7 plus, because at the Java E 7 timeframe, it was supposed to be, the feature of the JPA. Exactly. So in Java 7, web application with highly and dynamic configuration settings for the persistence tier, what will be your way? So my way would be actually the Minio or S3. So what you can do is you can store, a JSON object in S3. So if you are really in the cloud or Minio, you can use something like parameter store, for instance. This is like a free way to configure applications. And now I have, two answers, always two answers. If you are on premise or if you are in the cloud. So in the on-premise, I would use, if you have just the database, then you could use JSON-B field in Postgres, for instance. So you have key and JSON-B as a feature, which is highly dynamic. In the cloud, for configuration settings, right now I would use, for instance, parameter store, because it's free. You could use secrets. It's not free, but secure. I mean, parameters is also secure. Secret is more like JSON. You can store JSON or S3, which is slow, a little bit slower, but very cheap. Okay, now there was a question regarding, this was part of this question was, I slightly shortened the questions, because actually the questions back then were longer than now. But interesting part, 2015, an interesting framework was mentioned, and I would like to show you this because it looks interesting. It is Apache OFBiz, and I never used that, but it's still active. And it looks like it's a suite of business applications. So I would say, this is now homework to you, airhacks watchers, or how to call it, viewers, not watchers, or listeners even. Just take a look at this, because it's still active. I checked that, and there are still a few commits. And this framework actually survived. It was mentioned 2015, and it still survives. So most of the frameworks, alternative frameworks, which were mentioned 8 years ago, usually are already dead. But this one survived, and this is really interesting. But there are not a lot of frameworks which are, which are a business application frameworks, right? So that's the thing. So homework to you. Take a look at this. So what is also mentioned, by the way, exactly, I also checked the contributors. So let's take a look at this. And, it's a little bit faster. But you see, it is still, alive. If you take a look at this, so 2015, it was around here. So there was a peak 2020, and it's still going strong. So it's an interesting thing, the framework, right? So they have CRM, e-business, e-commerce, supply chain management. So this is like a small SAP almost. So and they have ASCII doc format configuration. So yeah, interesting one. Okay. And it supports Java 17. Look at this. Really cool. Okay, so this was, and then there's also one question. What my opinion about extensions like Delta Spike and or Picket Link, and Delta Spike and Picket Link are no more active. It's always the problem with extensions. So if you have if you are using extensions, usually what happens with them, they are very enthusiastic in the beginning, and then it somehow sleeps a bit. So this is Delta Spike, and if we take a look at the contributors of Delta Spike, it was huge back then. We will see that the Mr. Struberg, which is a huge, Mark Struberg is very well known in the community, and so he contributes still, but you can see, there is also almost no activity except, Mr. Struberg, but everyone else is just, it's just sleeping project. I guess less. There's a spike here, but yeah, maybe it was Java migration or something like this. So I would say I still try to avoid, extensions like Delta Spike, and even if I use Quarkus, I focus on microprofile and try, not to use too many external extensions, because it's always, the danger that, the developers just lose interest and they say, okay, I'm no more interested in supporting or implementing or for the projects, and then you are stuck with, with that code. Okay, so this was the article. This is the old. Then I think I mentioned this at the show already, but this was fun. So this is maybe one of the fastest websites on the internet. It's just a list, nothing else. But I was at a JCon conference, and attendee asked me after the show, after my session, whether I'm working for the company called Airhacks, for the large company. And I say, okay, this is no company behind. It's just it's just a domain. It's just me. And then I got the idea and registered Airhacks Industries. So this is my new domain, and I just put all Airhacks related stuff. And if you like, you can also join Discord here, for instance. It's free and really nice community. It gets nicer and nicer. Okay, so that's basically it. This was fun. And okay, podcast. The last one was with Stefan Janssen of Devox and Java Polis. It was actually published 2 hours ago. Really fun conversation with Stefan about learning, machine learning, Java, Devox, Java Polis, and a bit history of Java. I really enjoyed the conversation. So if you like, listen to it. And now back to the workshop. So let's see. When will you post TikToks? I don't have an account. I try to avoid all these social media. So I was on YouTube and Twitter, and this is enough. So I try to avoid everything else. It's just, a huge time eater. So yeah, I'm not really interested, to post everything everywhere. So I will stick with YouTube and Twitter. But thank you for this, for the suggestion of TikToks. Just, what was it, github.com. Let's see whether I will find it. No, I actually forgot my own Adam Bean domain, or blog was it, right? Then was the blog and the announcement. Perfect. And these were the questions and topics. Okay. So, thoughts on JSR 375. So this is the Java security. I just added this because what happens in the cloud, I'm implementing less, or I'm using less and less of the Java security and pushing more and more responsibility to the cloud. For instance, the OpenID Connect flow happens usually in HTTP API gateway or the load balancer, and not in my app, for instance, right? So so the Java security gets leaner. What I'm using from Java security is the principal injection, JSON Web Token injection, what I get from microprofile, and rows allowed annotations. But the what the application server did before, like OpenID Connect flow, usually it happens outside. So this is why I mentioned this. So also a question regarding onion architecture, or how it's called, pipe and filters, I think, or hexagonal architectures. So I would say less and less common, at least in my projects, because so what we get are simple microservices or lambdas or small monolith, and it's not like a monolith exposes the the functionality over 6 different protocols, right? So remote procedure-like communication between microservices, this one. What is RPC like? I would say the closest gRPC, but still before I use gRPC, and we have already REST, nothing speaks against misusing Jigsaw for remote procedure call. So I would say you can still use it. But if you really need to know high performance communication, you could use gRPC and or even remote method invocation actually. So this was also fun, short about show you how to do RMI. Is still around. You could just still use it. Oh, this one I also picked because interesting. Zero downtime under continuous delivery. Because why this is interesting? Because this is why I prefer, if I use in the cloud, I tend to use the Fargate ECS, for instance, because if you use the how it's called, code deploy is the name of the service. It does, for instance, rolling updates already for you. And I even like Lambda more, AWS Lambda, because you get the rolling updates for free. So you can even, say 20%, traffic to the new version and 80% the old one. So this is solved problem in the clouds. If you are not in the cloud, then you always have to configure the load balancer to do this, and you have to implement health checks, liveness and readiness checks, to know what's going on. Also, what I picked, an old question: do you think there is a value in having JDBC wrapper with populated configuration parameters? And I don't think so, because what happens in the cloud, all the JDBC drivers and stuff is configured with environment entries, and the environment entries are populated with, for instance, we mentioned already, parameter store. You can use parameter store environment entries, and it never happens actually dynamically. So it always happens in my projects at deployment time. And if it runs, if something changes, we deploy a new version. This is how it works. So it's like immutable infrastructure or move forward, right? Yeah, and what is the best way to achieve a singleton JPA entity? So, and this is, and I didn't want it actually to copy this, an error. So, so the JPA entity means there's only one. So what you can do, you can specify the entity as read only, for instance, right? And there will be no copies of that. Okay, Mr. Thomas asked me, any thoughts about using scripting languages in application? Yes, I did it a lot. And what you are suggesting with the Graal VM, it is actually a good idea. So the Graal VM is a polyglot runtime, and hopefully I will find it. So is there something with polyglot or? So what's wrong? Usually it always shows me the polyglot and never the Java, but it ships with Node.js technologies and polyglot programming. And there is one called JavaScript. And this looks somehow like this. And this is a nice way to embed not only JavaScript as a source code, you can even import JavaScript libraries if you have to. And from time to time, we do it. So so it makes sense from time to time. Actually, the airhacks FM, the entire homepage is deployed that way. So I have a Graal VM template engine I wrote, and what it does, it reads JSON, uses Mustache, I think, JavaScript or handlebars, Mustache or handlebar, which is loaded in Graal VM, and then creates the entire website with the RSS feed. This is how the airhacks FM page is created. And yeah, so you can absolutely use it. So Nashorn is no more an option, so it was, but the Graal VM also runs in compatibility mode. So I did it actually a lot. Even on my blog, the stats are implemented in this way, so it is working. Yeah, Mr. Kin says, hello Java developer. Yeah, hello Kin. So Mr. Citref, hello, can you rate this Java code? Wow, can I rate this Java code? So take a look on this. So contributors, There are 2 contributors, and I have to be careful because one said to me, hello, nice, right? So I cannot say the code is not nice because, but let's take a look what happens here. So crunching the latest data. So Mr. Keen and Mr. Robelmeister and Mr. Keen created code, and it is not, there are 16 commits in total. Now, let's take a look. So they use Gradle. Let's take a look. The question is, for instance, why Gradle and not Maven? Why I'm asking, because I have the feeling that Maven is a little bit more known or better known than Gradle, but I fully accept it. Gradle is also okay. So then source main Java, let's take a look at this. So Java PL QL NUS, configuration language listeners menu services. So I don't like utils because that doesn't mean anything. Services is also problematic, but configuration language and listeners is fine. So the configuration ships with configuration class. For instance, final, I try to avoid final. Why that? Because why restrict yourself, right? So it is this comment ships with, I don't know this, EU or carry. What is this? It's hard to tell. So then what is the language? There is, impl. I try to actually to avoid impls packages because impl doesn't say you anything, right? So I suspect you have here an interface somewhere. So final again, I know defensive programming, whatever, but I still try to avoid it. So if you have private constructor, I would rather use an interface rather than restricting the creation of classes with private constructor. Yeah, this is what I can do very briefly. Services, inventory service. Yes, there is no interfaces, so big plus, no interfaces, very good. So remove final is not needed. And yeah, this looks actually reasonable, right? Yeah, nice little Java code. So I would say you can still rename utils random, so to call just the package randomizer or whatever you need, or just move the random to somewhere you are using this. I don't believe that every package will use your randomizer or whatever you would like to do with it. Yeah, menu, I like the menu because menu is something from the business. So I would say it's okay, right? But what you will need here, at least a little bit more README. I would say at least one sentence. What is it all about? And what you are missing is license, which is critical. And yeah, and other than that, I would say nice, right? So yeah, Alex, but maybe it is running from I saw the main, right? The main method is what is Java plugin? I think it starts. I don't even know how it is started. And Alex Nerd, this is actually it says concurrent problems. Yeah, but what I will do is, for instance, I will just test it and see what happens. So write more tests. Regarding tests, are there any tests there? So I would say I think there are no tests, right? Java, no tests. So this is suspicious because if you have a little bit of strings, I always write unit tests to be faster, not to have code coverage. So if there are no tests, are suspicious. Okay, sorry. This was a quick, review of your projects. I hope it was fair, right? And yeah, I would say, yeah, use concurrent hash map, skip concurrent hash map, concurrent hash set. Yeah, you are right, of course. But usually you get the concurrent modification exception, which, yeah. Alex, you are right. Perfect. So this was the first community-driven code review on airhacks TV. And my to-do is to create lots of shorts with sockets, right? And your to do is to take a look of the OFBiz, because I'm really curious what it is, right? It is like, project which survived, 8 years is still active, and they building business applications with Java, which is unusual. So I would say thank you. See you. Promotion, right? Forgot to promote my own workshops. Where are they? Let's see. So I would just close. Oh, this one. And so serverless patterns and best practices. So what I will do here is, to show you how to package and run Java applications, serverless applications. And I did also some work in security, and I think there is enough to talk with JSON Web Tokens, OpenID Connect, user management, and the interaction between microprofile Java EE and the cloud. So they will happen in winter. Before winter, there's absolute no time. Lots of projects. Someone asked me, so if the agent is not an end user, the page is rendered from scratch. Otherwise, the render is partially similar to what GitHub already does. This is okay. I don't know what you're referring to. You're referring to the to the capture project. Okay. You are building a REST for social media. One of the requirements is allow users to allow other users. How would you design backend to handle user follow read relationship efficiently? So user follow users. So if this is a NoSQL database, if you have NoSQL database, so if you have relational database, this will usually degrade to NoSQL database. If you have a NoSQL database, you could look at it's called single table design idea, where you have a partition key and a secondary key, for instance. And with the secondary key, you can model the followers, for instance, or you can embed the followers to the user, which will also work, right? And if you need to have a reverse view, you need, how to call it, lookup index or secondary. It's not secondary index. So you have to flip the indices. So you can look up, by the one user and see the others. And if you are really interested, in the relations between users, you will need to use a graph database. Like, for instance, this is one very famous Java database, which I forgot. Graph database Java. Neo4j. I wanted to say GraphQL, which is absolutely not true. So Neo4j, this is what I meant. So if you're interested in relations, you will have to use the Neo4j, or you can implement, the relations with NoSQL database of your choice. And then you always, is the question, should I model the relations outside or inside the entity? So is it like in document database, do I have a document with all the relations inside, which is very fast, but the updates are the problem? Or I have a user and the follows are outside of the user, right? So this is the main question. Okay. Thank you a lot. And see you next month, right? Tiago. This is the Brazilian friend. Finish airhacks. So I thank you a lot for keeping up, Tiago. I hope. So I'm really interested. You can prepare something for next time. And what I'm interested is, where I was inconsistent. So what I'm telling you right now, whether this is the same or different to what I told you 10 years ago, this would be interesting, because everyone changes a bit. I try to be consistent, but always, there's new experiences, new projects. So I'm really interested how I change over the years. This will be interesting experiment, Tiago. So thank you. And I have to quit the show, because now I have to record a lot of shorts about sockets, right? Java and sockets. So thank you a lot, and bye.